morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I appreciate you all for joining us today. It's a pleasure to be here in this cold day over here in Canada. It's December 17th, so we are close to Christmas. I'm using my festive background here, and I hope you all are getting things wrapped up for the year and getting ready for the holiday break with your loved ones. But appreciate you taking the time out of the, let's say, the less productive week of the year to join me today to be talking about resource management, right? And the idea for our conversation today is really be talking about how you can improve your governance process around resource management, capacity planning, all those things, and how you can use Smartsheet to help you with that as well. And of course, as long as we go through the presentation, I'll be sharing some recommendations, some tips based on our work with other clients and other organizations as well. Okay. For those of you who don't know me, let me advance my slide here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bruno Freitas. I am a PMO leader as well. I have been leading PMOs for a number of years in Brazil, over here in Canada as well. And I had the pleasure to lead enterprise PMOs. So we had all sorts of different projects, IT, non-IT projects. We had a sizable team of project managers, program managers, and of course, we work with many other groups across the organizations that I worked for. Nowadays, I work as a consultant running PMO Evolution with our team here in Canada and US, and we basically help other organizations to either establish the PMOs or improve the governance processes of those PMOs. And of course, Smartsheet, we are a Smartsheet aligned partner. So Smartsheet is one of the key product offerings as well. We do Smartsheet implementations for several clients in North America, Latin America as well. And if you are not familiar with Smartsheet, throughout this presentation today, hopefully you're going to get some more insights of what Smartsheet can do for you. I had a webinar a month ago. I can't believe that. Time flies by. And I was talking about an overview about Smartsheet. If you missed that webinar, is in our YouTube channel, but you guys are going to get an email after this conversation with some key links, and I'm sure to include the link to that previous conversation so you can get an overview about what Smartsheet can do for your organization. But today we're going to be very focused on one of the components of the Smartsheet suite, which is called Smartsheet Resource Management. Okay. And this is meant to be a very interactive conversation. So if you have any questions or if you want to clarify any points or just share your thoughts, just please feel free to do so. Okay, so what are the typical challenges that we face when we are managing our PMOs, managing projects, programs, portfolios, right? For me and for the vast majority of our clients, one of the key challenges have been managing resources, right? You may think that, yeah, we may have different types of projects and, the size of these projects and the complexity will have many risks. But if there is one common theme across projects of any size or any complexity is really resources, right? Do we have enough resources? Are the resources, do we have the right qualification for those resources as well, right? Are we risking to losing those resources, right? So, and that's tricky because one example that I can give, it was in one of my past professional experiences. It was, we didn't have a good intake process for our PMO at that time. It was right when I joined that organization, and what was happening was many people, they had great ideas about projects, and basically projects were popping up all the time, right? And oh yeah, let's do this project, let's do that project. Luckily for that organization, money was not really a problem. Of course, you always have to make sure that you are making good use of the money you have, but they had a sizable portfolio budget, but resources was very challenged. And from that perspective, even though the company was saying, oh, we need to start this project, we didn't have resources to execute those projects immediately as they wanted. And even though we had a sizable portfolio budget, as I said, that was before COVID as well. So you didn't have the luxury of using visual conferencing tools like we have today. So what happened at the time was that we had to bring people to our city, and they had to be physically in the office doing the project. So you are now trying to bring people from all over the place, and those people will relocate at a premium. So the labor expenses were becoming way too high, and still, as you are executing those projects, you see that people are not adjusting here. They want to go back to their homes, and there was always that challenge of making sure that we had enough resources, and we're keeping those resources throughout the life of those projects, right? And what happened at that time was that as we were managing those projects, typically in our status reports, we're seeing things like, yeah, everything looks good, our schedule was on track, the budgets are fine, and we are meeting our milestones. But what was truly happening was that we were shifting people from one project to another when there was a need, right? And a lot of times we're working overtime as well, a lot of times during the weekends, holidays, that kind of season, that kind of thing. And what was happening then is that, yeah, the team was not feeling great about that. There was a lot being delivered, so from a surface level, things were doing okay. But from a team perspective, they were really upset about that, right? So there was that constant shifting from project A to project B to project C. The priority was changing all the time, because when we get to a point where a project may get delayed, so let's shift resource to make sure that that is not happening, asking them to work overtime and all those things. And working over time and working on the weekends was become the norm, not the outlier, right? So it was not great, but that was not what you see on the project status report. If you are just looking at the traditional metrics, yeah, we are delivering the scope, yes, we are delivering on time, yes, we are delivering on budget as well. Okay. So how do we fix that? What we have learned throughout that experience, what I have learned as well, my professional experiences and working with some clients, is that typically you have three problems or three gaps that you want to address through your resource management governance framework. One is about visibility, right? So you know what people are doing, you know how much they assign to those projects, you know how much time they are using spending on those projects as well, because one thing is for the project manager to say, yeah, Bruno will be working on my project 50% of his time, and the other thing is that, well, I have a lot more work than 50% of my time, or I have a lot less work than 50% of my time. So just the fact that Bruno is assigned to a project at 50% doesn't mean that he's being used at that capacity. And having that visibility is one of the gaps that we typically see around the resource management governance framework. And the other thing is about prioritization, right? So when it comes to projects, which project is more important? If we have to shift our senior resources from one project to another, which one should we pick? Right. And sometimes that is not clear. Another constant battle is, okay, so I have resources working on projects, but they are also supporting our operations, right? So which one is the most important one? Some organizations, they do a great job in defining, projects. They will take precedence over operational work. So you know that you are going to be, supporting your business operations on a best effort basis, but the projects will be your priority. In other organizations, it might be the opposite. The business operations come first, so we have to keep the lights on, and then whatever time we have available, we'll be working on projects. And that's a project manager's nightmare, right? Because you never know when the resources will be available. available. In other organizations, we have seen there is a good balance between operations and projects. So you know upfront that people are not going to be 100% available for projects, for example, because they're expected to be also available for operational work at a certain capacity. So the definition of those priorities within your organization, it's really important for your resource management governance process to work. And the last point here is we're talking a lot about governance, but I want to stress that governance is super important about around project prioritization, capacity planning, resource assignment, resource reallocation, right? You may have the best tool possible, but if your processes are not well organized, it's not going to work. The tool that you have is just going to amplify the noise. The data that you have there is not going to be reliable for decision making. So we see governance as one of the key aspects. And it's funny because we're going to be talking about Smartsheet today. And Smartsheet is a great tool that can help you to address those issues here within the parameters of your governance, the governance that you define for your organization. But what happens typically is that the organizations say, yeah, we need a tool, we have this issue, and we need to fix that. So let's buy a tool. And they spend some time looking for a product. They make sometimes a sizable investment in that product as well, and then they don't get the results they're looking for, right? It's really because there is not a problem with the tool per se, it's because the governance was not well defined. And we see that with a lot of our clients as well. They come to us talking about, for example, well, I need Smartsheet or something like Smartsheet because I have problems A, B, C. And then we start asking questions about the governance model, and you see that there are gaps, right? And then we typically have to work with them to address those gaps at the most foundational level first, make sure that the tool is giving them the benefits or the business outcomes they are looking for. Okay, so these are some of the gaps we see. I'm sure that you guys in your organizations, you guys see other challenges as well. So don't be shy. Put them in the chat here, or feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions or if you have any comments about that. Okay. All right. Let's keep moving. So what I want to present here is a recommendation based on the work I have done, the work we have done with some of our clients as well, on how you can streamline your resource management or your capacity planning governance framework. Okay. So some of those things here, a tool like Smartsheet can help you quite a lot. But you see, as I speak about that, it's not only about the tool, it's really about the process, the people engaged, and the frequency you are having those conversations and those touch points as well, because otherwise the tool is not going to help you. All right. So these are the 7 steps. We are going to be talking about building and maintaining your resource pool, right? So if you have no idea what that means, I will show you in a moment here. I want to make sure that we are talking a little bit about demand as well and the importance of prioritization for this work to happen efficiently. We are going to be talking, of course, about allocating resources to the work, and that must be common in your organizations. You need to have resources assigned to your projects, but we'll show how that works here in Smartsheet. How the information that you're getting out of the tool can help you to make better decisions, right? And how you can communicate that decision, engage the right people to help you or to help them as well to make better decisions, right? So that's the point that is a little bit outside of the tool here, that we want to make sure that your governance is well defined to help with that. And then we're going to be talking a little bit about reporting, because at the end of the day, you want that information to be easily accessible, digestible. So even if the PMO leader, a resource manager, a project manager, someone working on projects, you want to make sure that you understand what that information means for you and what you have to do based on the information that you're getting. right? So, and finally, the last one here is that we have seen through experience that a lot of times, yeah, this makes sense. Let's do it. That is that excitement, but there is no consistency, right? So, I think consistency is a lot more important than really if your governance process is well defined or if your tool is really good. The consistency is really what's going to stick to people and make sure that you are taking baby steps to improve your governance, to improve your tools as well, based on the frequent conversations and the frequent decision making you're having based on the process or the tools that you have. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about resource management. So in my previous webinar, as I said, I was talking about Smartsheet Core, right? So how you can use Smartsheet to start managing projects, managing your schedules, managing your risks, your issues, your decisions, change requests, managing your financials, how you can see the result of that governance in your dashboards at the project level, program level, portfolio level, enterprise level. So we had an opportunity to talk about that in last month in our previous webinar. Today I'm going to be talking about resource management. So resource management is part of the Smartsheet suite of products, but it's specifically tailored for capacity planning, resource assignment, reports as well. So those are two complementary products, and I would say that they work quite well. They are integrated, but you don't need to have both of them, right? You can have resource management without having Smartsheet Core, or you may have Smartsheet Core without having resource management. It works as well, but of course you get the most benefit if you have, you know, those products and they are integrated and providing the information that you're looking for. So that said, let's go to the steps that I mentioned. And as I go through these steps, I'm going to be shifting screens here so you guys can see how that works in Smartsheet. Okay. So the first point here is really for us to build and maintain our resource pool. So we need to know which resources we have available for projects, right? Day assignments and that kind of thing. So you need to build that resource pool for your organization. Nowadays, you may be assigning people to projects, but you don't have that centralized view of everybody who is available, what you're doing, and all that. And that might be detrimental to you have solid efficient capacity planning processes, right? So the first part here is really for us to understand our resource pool. And you can do that through, let me shift gears here and go to Smartsheet Resource Management. So this is the Smartsheet Resource Management interface. There are a few functionalities here that I will be walking through as we go through this conversation. But first of all, I was talking about resource pool. So this is what I'm talking about. It's really understanding everybody who is available at your organization, what they do, the experience levels, and you can expand this as you see fit for your organization. So here in Smartsheet, for example, let me go to people, for example. So I have my resources. These resources, they may have different permission levels for projects. So I may have project managers that cannot see projects from other project managers. You can have someone that is more a program manager, so that person can see different projects and portfolios as well. And you can have, you know, people who can see everybody as well. Depends a lot on your organization, so you can organize that to give you based on the needs that you have for your organization. But really the interesting part here is that I can define some information that I believe is important for me about to know about my resources. So in this case, I might be working on a company with multiple offices. So I want to know the location of those resources. I want to know when they start working for us, when they're going to be stopping working for us in case they are contractors, right? So they typically are in your organization for a limited period of time. So you can have those things here. You can add more information if those resources are full-time available for your organization, part-time available for your organization. I'm not talking yet about availability for projects. I'm just saying, Bruno only works for this company in the mornings, for example, right? And that would be his 100%. It's going to be only 4 hours a day. So you can define those things here, and it's important to know. And you can define rates for those resources, and I'm going to show you in a minute. But what is interesting here is that I have this person, Aisha. She is a part of my marketing team. So discipline for us here in the Smartsheet world will be my team. So she is part of the marketing team, and the role that I put here for her is that she's a junior marketing analyst, for example. I made this very simple here. I just say junior, intermediate, senior, but you can expand this based on the needs of your organization, right? So I could have here, I don't know, PMO, for example, and I could have project manager junior, project manager intermediate, project manager senior, or I could have program manager, portfolio manager, whatever might project coordinator, whatever might be the roles that you have in your organization. So it's nice that one, you know the people that are available for project. Two, you know the departments and you know the seniority level. So that way you can start forming the basis of your capacity plan. Okay. The other point that is interesting here, let me go back to my presentation, is that I can expand these with some custom fields, as I said. So, if you are a multinational organization, you may want to have to know which language people speak, or which certifications they have, the skill set. So that can be helpful when you are assigning those resources for different projects, right? So you decide that. Your Smartsheet gives you that flexibility. The other thing that I was talking about was about rates here, right? So I can define rates that are standard for my organization. So let me go back here to Smartsheet on a moment. And here I'm defining my bill rates. So in that case, I define the disciplines, the different groups that are going to be, supporting project delivery in my organization. I define the roles, as I said, junior, intermediate, senior, and I define my rate card here. So this is extremely helpful to help you to control, and I'm going to show you this as we continue this conversation. What are your planned labor expenses for your project, and what are your incurred labor expenses for your project, right? So labor expenses are one of the components of your project budget, right? You may have other things, licenses, lease, facilities, whatever it might be, but labor expenses, for the most part, is one of the key or one of the largest expenses that you're going to have in your project. So you can control those rates here. And, if you are bringing new people that are playing these roles, these are going to be your standard roles. So every time that I assign, like Aisha, for example, who is a marketing junior person, I know that her hourly rate is going to be $85, right? So that helps me to have that idea of how much these resources are going to cost on my project based on the assignments. But I can always go back to Aisha and change that if I don't want to use the standard rate, right? So in that case, I could say, you know what, Aisha is a contractor, so $85 might be too low for her. Let's say she's charging us $100 an hour. So I could override here and say Aisha is going to be charging us $100 an hour. And let's say 6 months from now, we extend Aisha's contract, and now her rate is going to be $105 an hour. I can come here and I can change that to be $105 an hour. So whatever I had previous to that, the $100 an hour, it stays in the system. And from that moment forward, any time that Aisha is assigned to a project or charging a project, it's going to be at $105 an hour. Okay. So that helps you quite a lot managing that aspect of your project. So anyway, so first point here is let's make sure that you have that visibility about your resource plan and your capacity across the different groups that you have in your organization. The other thing that I like to do here, and we typically suggest that for our clients, is that it's important to have some placeholder roles. So, especially if your projects are new projects, right? So you don't know who is going to be the PM, who is going to be the business analyst, who is going to be the marketing person. So you can have those placeholders. So that way you are already indicating to the resource manager that I may need a project manager a month from now, right? And if you don't have that person available, you probably should be doing some hiring because I most likely will need that project manager to work on my project. Or I might indicate to the resource manager that, if you're having someone who is becoming available, just reserve that person to this project that is starting a month from now, right? So I think it helps quite a lot the 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 resource managers to have that indication of upcoming demand. It's a problem that we typically see in a lot of the PMOs, right? The resource managers don't know when new demand is coming, so therefore they have to scramble every time there is a new project to find resources to work on those projects, right? So you are giving that indication up front, help them to hire more resources, or maybe there's an opportunity for them to upskill some of those resources, right? So if they are never assigned fully on projects because they don't have the skill set, they can plan around training those resources so they can take other roles. For example, in the organization, they become more usable for projects in general in that organization, right? It helps us as well to estimate costs for our upcoming projects, right? So I don't know who the PM is going to be, so I'm going to use this placeholder PM here. The hourly rate is going to be, I don't know, the mid-range hourly rate, for example, if you want. So that way I know that I should be setting aside this much money for a project manager. And then if I can fulfill that role with a resource that is less expensive, bonus for me. If I have to fulfill that role with someone that is more expensive, then I may need to see whether I can have other cost savings to offset a little bit of that cost. So I found placeholders extremely important to have in your resource pool, and that's something that you can have easily in resource management as well. Over here, you have the placeholders, so you can define those roles based on the needs of your organization. Okay. All right. Let's continue here. So we just covered the first step of our roadmap. The second step here is really the demand, right? So as I was saying, it's important that you have a process, an intake process to indicate what are the new projects coming in our pipeline, what is the resource impact that those projects will have, how much money those resources are going to cost. So that way the people, the executives making decisions whether or not they want to execute on those projects, they can make well-informed decisions, right? So what I have here in Smartsheet, for example, I have here my projects, and the way I structure here is these ones in blue, in-flight projects. So they have been confirmed, approved. We are executing those projects. These ones in gray are projects that are new, and uh, I still need that executive approval if we want to execute on them or not. And then for these projects, I want to do some work that will help my executive team to make a decision on whether we should be doing that project or not, right? So one, I can start assigning resources to that project, placeholder resources in this case. And, as I mentioned before, each one of those placeholder resources are going to have hourly rates. So based on the allocation that I have, the time frame that I have for the allocation, the role, the seniority, I have an indication of how much those resources are going to cost my project. And this is indicated right over here, right? So you see here, future schedule, it's $920,000 in this case, considering this allocation. So this starts giving me some more elements of maybe I need less experienced resources, or maybe I need less allocation for some of those roles. So that way I can bring down these expected labor expense, because we are talking only about labor expense here. I'm not talking about other things. Okay. And then this will help me to have that visibility about what is coming in the pipeline and over here. So let me show you guys. So I said here, for example, these blue projects are projects that are in execution, right? So they have named resources, and these ones in gray are projects that are coming, and depending if they are approved by the executive team, but at least I have an idea of the demand that I'm going to have for this project, and I can start having conversations with my peers who are the heads of each one of those disciplines as well to make sure that they have the resources available to help me out in case those projects get approved. Okay. All right. So don't be shy to ask questions if you guys have any questions, but if not, I'll keep going here. Okay. So yeah, so the what I was trying to say here is that it's important that you understand what takes priority for your organization as well, right? If it's project work or business as usual operational work. So in this case, here in Smartsheet, I only have projects, but I could have a project that would be operational support, for example, right? So I know that Roberto will be always 25% available for operational support because I you never know. Maybe something will break today and we need this guy to go there and fix that problem, right? So you may want to indicate here that Roberto is not fully available for projects because I may need him to fix my operational products here or services, right? So that gives you that idea. But again, it's a determination that you have to clarify with your organization, right? If they want to have a separate team for operations and projects, that's my preference. So that way the PMs know that, yeah, I'm not sharing my resources with anyone else. I know they are only available for me, for my project, or I have the resources only between my project and these other PM's project. So that way it's a lot easier for your project managers to manage those resources, but it might not be the reality of every organization. So you may want to make sure that you have clear definition on what takes priorities. Okay. All right. The fourth step here is really taking the right actions, right? So, as I said, what you're going to do with this information is what makes or breaks the investment you are going to make in a governance process or in a tool like this, right? So, in this case here, let me go back to the Smartsheet. I have here the indication of capacity per department. So what I have here is that I have the capacity month to month, right? So I may have new resources starting next month, starting February, something like that. And that gives me an indication. In this case, in January, the business analysis team is slightly over allocated, right? So I can see here that I have 3 resources in that team. And based on everything that is already in flight, or everything that is still coming, we may have over allocation here for those resources, right? So in that case, I want to get more information about that, so I can click on the heat map and I can see what is happening here. So for now, my resources, they are not doing a lot of work, which is not a great thing, right? You have to keep those resources available, sorry, used. But I can see that there's a ton of work coming their way. So you may want to start thinking about who is going to be working on what. So in this example, it might be a good situation because yeah, I don't have any work for them right now, but there's a bunch of things here and I can put them right away. In other organizations, it might not be the case. You don't have resources available to work on this, so you need to start doing some hiring or shifting people to make them available to work on this. But at least the visibility that you have now is helping you to make decisions, to have the conversations before this becomes a big problem. Okay. Right. Okay, so let's continue looking here. You guys are very shy, but once again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand. Happy to try to clarify those questions. All right. So the first step here is really around communication. right? So you want your PMO to serve other needs or other people in your organization. So you are not creating these just for the sake of the project management office. That's not smart. You are creating these to help other people in your organizations to be successful, right? To make better decisions as well. So you have to really identify those people in your organization. Who are your PMO customers, right? And what are their needs? In this case here, I'm just providing some examples. I can have the team members, the people who are working on projects. I have seen this situation a few times where they say, "Well, I don't even know the project that I'm supposed to be working on, so I do as I've been told," which is not great, right? Sometimes they don't have a say on whether or not they have the capacity to do more work, and all of a sudden they may not have enough work, or they may have way too much work, right? So you don't want to have either one of those situations. You may you may don't want to have people 100% assigned on projects because you may need them to do other things for your organization. So if they are employees, for example, maybe there's internal training, there's vacation, there's I don't know, other things that you may have performance management going on in your organization that you want them to be partially available for those opportunities. So it's important that you have that clarity, right? And you can provide that visibility to them as well. I think it helps quite a lot with engagement and trust in leadership if they have access to that type of data. The other one here is really the resource managers, right? So I think that's one way that the PMO can truly become a strategic partner of the organization if they can equip these other groups to become better, right? In that case, you are giving them notice that there's more work coming. You are working with them to estimate how many resources these projects are needed from the departments. What is the seniority? Whether or not they have those resources, if they want to train someone, if they want to hire someone. So having that, I have seen, is one of the key benefits that the PMO can deliver to other disciplines across the organization and bring up the level of maturity across the organization very quickly. Project managers, they love to ask those questions, right? I like to manage projects as well, so I know that from time to time, we say that, oh, okay, I was counting on this resource to do this work, and 1 week later, I was expecting this result to be ready, and it's not. And then when I talk to that person, they say, well, I was busy doing some other work, and nobody told me that that resource will be busy doing that other work, right? So I think it's a great way to keep the engagement and the trust of your project management team if they have clarity about what everybody else is doing so they can manage the expectations of their own stakeholders better as well, right? You, as a project manager, you don't want to be in a situation where you are going in front of your executive team to provide them an update and you say, well, yeah, I was expecting this milestone to be ready today, but we have a delay here because the resources are now working on something else, and I cannot say with confidence at this point when this milestone will be right now. I think that's one of the worst scenarios that you want to put your project manager in. So having visibility and that dialogue with the project manager is going to help quite a lot, right? And then you have other groups as well. You may have your finance team, so they can see the cost being carried on those projects. You have your executive team, so they can see the capacity versus utilization of those resources. That can help you to define the escalation path for resourcing problems or resourcing risks, right? So if project A needs the same resources as project B, which one takes precedence? Well, let's bring this up to the steering committee. Let's bring this up to the project sponsor so they can make decisions about that, right? So it helps you to become that trusted partner of your organization because you are being proactive in identifying those problems and hopefully bringing suggestions as well. And by the way, that is one thing that I forgot to mention here, and I'll go back very quickly. If I look at, let me go back to my heat map here. I have my heat map by group, as I said, but I may have my heat map by resource. So let's take a look at what is going on with this Bruno demo resource, or with Aisha, junior marketing analyst here. So Aisha is 75% over allocated to project. So as you see here, she's 100% on this digital ID project, 75% on this next generation battery development project. So clearly, that's too much for Aisha to do, especially considering that she's a junior resource. So you could click here, reassign, and then Smartsheet is going to show you, potentially other resources with same seniority from the same department that are same location, if I want, that are available to help out with this project. So that way we can balance Aisha's workload. In this case here, too bad for us, we don't have any matching. So we have to find some people that can help out because clearly Aisha can burn out at some point. So Smartsheet helps you to make those decisions and to make recommendations as well. So you are not going in front of your resource manager, your execs with the problems only. We are also bringing some recommendations here that might work. Okay. All right, so let me go back here to step 6, which is building reports. So Smartsheet brings a lot of great reporting. So let me go here to reports. So what I have here, let me create a new report to exemplify what I want to say. There's a ton of different reports. One that I particularly like when I'm managing projects is this time and fees report. So let's say, for example, I pick, this year I want to see group by project, group by month. Let's run this report and see what happens here. So what this is telling me now is that for each one of those projects, and I only have here for this year, let's say next 90 days. Maybe that's a better one. There you go. So now I have more data points to show you guys. So I can see here that this AI enhanced market research project, I have resources assigned for the next few months here. And, the cost of those resources on a monthly basis is, in this case, $5,000 in December, $12,000 in January, $12,000 in February, and so on and so forth. So that's fine. It helps me to have an idea about how much money I need to set aside for labor expenses in January, February, etc., based on the resources I have assigned to these projects. Okay. The more resources I have, the more expensive it's going to be, all those things that you guys know. The other thing that I want to show you here is this incurred cost here. So because we are looking at the next 90 days, all the values that I have here are zero. But let's say I want to see the cost that I have incurred this month. So Smartsheet has a time tracker feature that I can show you in a moment here, where the resources are going to be allocating time for project, right? So this week I work 2 hours this project, 4 hours on that project. And when I press submit, there will be someone reviewing that utilization, approving that. And when they approve, that cost will be shown here. So now it's going to say, instead of $5,000, it will say, based on Bruno's utilization so far, we already spent $1,000 this month. So therefore, we are not changing Bruno's allocation. So there's still $4,000 to be spent in labor expenses this month for this project. Okay. So you have that data in Smartsheet. You can have other things as well. Utilization is another one that it might be very popular in your organization. In this case, I was just asking for utilization for the next 90 days for each one of those team members. I could have organized them by discipline and then by team member. That might be a better way to view it. So there you go. So my application development here, I have all these people and this placeholder assigned to upcoming project or projects in the next 90 days, right? And this is how much hours they are available. This is how much allocation I have for them. So for the application development team, I only have Maya really assigned to projects. Everybody else is just available. So I need to do something about that. I don't want to have these people just sitting around doing nothing for the next 90 days, right? So Smartsheet gives you that visibility, right, and those data points as well that can help you. And you can, as I said, there is an integration between Smartsheet and resource management. So in that case, some of this data I'm using to build a dashboard like this. So I'm showing for the resource manager, for example, if they don't have access to resource management, they can see here the utilization for the PMO team in 2025, how many hours I was expecting them to be working on projects, how many hours they have spent so far, if there's anyone who has been over allocated, and so on and so forth. So if you are a more visual person, or if you want to show this data more visually, you don't like what Smartsheet or Resource Manager brings out of the box, you can use the data to build the dashboards that make sense for your organization as well. So I think that's a very powerful feature. You don't need to do anything manually. Every time there's a change in resource management, there is a change over here as well. Okay. All right, folks. Okay, so last step is really be consistent with this process, right? So you want to make sure that you are constantly reviewing the information that you have in Resource Manager, right? So your resource pool is up to date, the availability, the rates, all that stuff. The allocations to project is up to date. The resources are entering time, and people are approving the timesheets as well, if that's a practice that you have in your organization. So that way, you know that there is reliability on the data that you are putting in front of others to make decisions. And it doesn't need to be perfect, and that's why I say here perfect is the enemy of done, but at least directionally you have something to show them. You can start with, let's say 2 teams only, and then you show the value of the platform, and then other teams we want to jump right in and have the resources in Smartsheet as well. I think that's a great way to start. You don't need to try to map everything up front for your organization, make a very big investment. You can start small and grow as you demonstrate value to the other teams, right? And consider what your PMO customers are looking for. So if they want to see the data more visually, as I just show in Smartsheet, it's an option for you to provide that. If they need more data points, you can give them the detailed data points as well. You can play around with those reports because the data is there essentially. Okay. So that's my recommendation, right? It should be more about having visibility, and the governance will go from there, and you expand the utilization of your capacity planning abilities for your organization. Okay. As we are wrapping up here, one thing that I want to say, it's an exciting feature that's coming up soon. It's not available today, but it's coming in 2026, is the scenario planning feature in Smartsheet. So, it might be the allocation that I have today, but I'm working on this project. The things are changing. I have to replan the project. And what happens here is that I now need to, play around with some what if scenarios, and this feature in Smartsheet can quite help you doing that without changing the live data that you have in your project plans. You can do simulations and see how that will impact your resource pool, how that will impact other projects in your organization and your current project as well. Okay. And I know, Juan, you want to see slide step number 6 again. So let me go back here. Is there any specific question here, Juan, that you want to ask? No, just take a screenshot or something like that. Okay, cool. If you have any question, let me know. Happy to clarify for you. Okay. But yeah, so this was basically what I had in mind to show to you guys today. The recording of this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel. We have some resources that are going to be sent via email as well. But I just want to give you some ideas of things that are possible to be done I show you in Smartsheet because it's an efficient way to do that. It's better than Excel for sure, right? But you can start with Excel. The governance is going to help you with that. The tool is not going to be very efficient, but at least the governance will be there to help you make decisions. And then you can look at making an investment to a resource management platform like the one that I just showed you, right? And if you have specific use cases, or if you have to, have more deep dive conversations about how Smartsheet can help you and help your organization, just feel free to send me an email or book some time with me. Here's my calendar link. I'll be happy to sit down with you, talk about how Smartsheet can help you, resource management can help you, or if you are having challenge, maybe I can give you some ideas based on my experience and based on what I have done with other clients as well. But anyway, we'll continue having webinars like this, providing more information about, typical challenges or pain points that we have when we are managing PMOs, right? Take status reporting, benefits realization, that kind of thing. So please continue following us on LinkedIn. I have my personal LinkedIn here that I share a bunch of tips and tricks every day. So feel free to follow me if you are comfortable doing so. Our website contains more information as well, and I have here my email, and so you guys can feel free to reach out to me. Okay, so I know it was a lot of information, especially considering that we are so close to the holidays, but I hope that was informative, that was helpful for you. We have a few minutes left here. I'll just open it up here to see if anyone has any questions. I don't see any questions on the QA, no questions on the chat. Okay, all right, friends. So appreciate your time. I wish you a wonderful holiday season for you and your loved ones. I hope you can take a break, focus on your family, focus on your friends as well, and just enjoying the holidays because that's the spirit of it. And then if you need anything, I'll be happy to, and I'll be here for you as well. With all that, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy the day. Stay warm if you are here in Canada, as I am. It's very cold today, but if you are in a more comfortable place, enjoy the day as well. And we'll see you each other again in our next webinar. Take care. Bye bye.